story really eloquently in the Evening Herald. Jennifer and John Kehoe from Naas received a troubling diagnosis some years ago when Jennifer was expecting their daughter Louise. Things all worked out much better, thankfully, as you will hear. Despite many commitments, Jennifer works hard to promote awareness of disability diagnosed in pregnancy. Among other things, she writes a very popular blog, Raindrops on My Head. So Jennifer, I invite you to dress us now, please.
I want to share my experience, which I've discovered over the last few years is not unusual. In 2009, when I was 20 weeks pregnant with our youngest child, we received the news that no parent ever thinks is going to happen to them. Our baby was diagnosed with Dandy Walker syndrome, which included significant brain and heart malformations. Over the next hour, our obstetrician gave us a very grim prognosis with all sorts of implications of how this would affect our child, including the possibility of death, severe disability, learning disabilities, and poor quality of life. Without the offer of an opinion of a cardiologist or a neurologist, one suggestion, and one suggestion only, was made to us. Most people would go to England. It was very clear what that implication was. Even though abortion was the furthest thing from our mind, the first few days after diagnosis were a nightmare. My first thought was how to get out of this situation as quickly as possible. I hoped the baby would die quickly so that I could begin my grieving process. Very quickly, this changed to the hope that she would get to 24 weeks so as to qualify for a birth certificate. And quickly after that, we wanted to see her born and to love her, whether she lived a minute, an hour, or 90 years. So it took me those few days to reach that third position. Had we followed the strong suggestion of our obstetrician, we would have started along a path of booking flights, packing our bags, organising babysitters for the other children. We wouldn't have had an opportunity to reach that third and most overwhelming position of desiring to love this child till she died. When we saw a cardiologist shortly afterwards, he gave us great hope. With the help of surgery, Louise could do well and reach adulthood and beyond. However, for the remainder of the pregnancy, we were treated with great unkindness. Our obstetrician not once called our baby her name, and not even a baby. In contrast, when we went to the children's hospital, the first thing asked of us was had we named the baby, and thereafter she was Louise. Both my husband and I felt we were being punished for carrying this child to term. We recognised how a terrified family could be frightened into aborting their child under those circumstances. The British guideline is that termination of pregnancy should be recommended in every case of Dandy Walker. 50% of babies with congenital heart defects are aborted. Many of these babies could have been helped surgically. Because Louise's condition is rare, I have friends across the world whose children have both Dandy Walker and congenital heart defects. I have yet to meet a single family who are not encouraged to abort their baby. people say that this will never happen in Ireland. There is nothing about Ireland that makes us different to anywhere else. Legality brings acceptability. But I'm happy to say this story has a happy ending. Today, Louise has come through 3 major heart operations, like a little trooper. Her brain malformation has had no effect on her whatsoever. She is a typical child who has reached all her milestones with time to spare, and is just as funny and cute and bold as any other 3-year-old. She's down there somewhere and she's absolutely delighted with her picnic. Our doctor was wrong. Our baby is not disabled. She's a treasure, and it is just a great pleasure to have her in our lives. The last thing I want to say is that because we know the pressure that parents are put under when their child is given a fetal prognosis of a disability, that a lot of parents are frightened into taking that trip to UK and now profoundly regret it. I'm asking you now, do not suffer it alone. Get help. Contact Women Hurt, Rachel's Vineyard. Tell somebody. There is healing out there. Seek it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer and John and all the Kehoe family for attending and such inspirational words. Can we give 3 cheers for little Louise? Hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip! She's a great girl. Okay, now we're just going to